Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Strikeout Bros. Today's episode is a special edition episode, and we'll be talking about our opinions on the extra inning rules. The extra inning rules that we're talking about are the ghost runner, which is the man on second, and these rules were implemented in the COVID season. That was in 2020 when they decided to have the last out on your team be placed on second when the extra inning started. So, for example, let's happen to say that it's the bottom of the ninth in like City Field, right? And Pete Alonso struck out looking or something like that. And now you have Pete Alonso at the bottom of the 10th starting at second. So the problem with this is that you have to start thinking differently as a manager and say to yourself, if we get a hit, Alonso isn't your fastest guy on the team. Can he make it home and win the game? Highly doubt it. So you have to look at your bench and say, all right, who's the fastest guy on this bench right now who hasn't played this whole game and has the opportunity to win the game for us? So it makes it super interesting. Not only does it do that, it helps with the bullpen, because it doesn't deplete the bullpen. Imagine first game in the series and that happens. You go through your whole bullpen. Now your bullpen is tired and it's going to change the dynamic of the series. It can be a pivotal one. And you know that every single game counts, no matter what happens, because you're trying to build, you're trying to get your team to the postseason. And these little pivotal moments in the season make a difference. What do you think about what I just finished saying, Lasha? And what are your thoughts on that?
No, it definitely does. It definitely impacts how the manager is going to proceed with using his pitches in the bullpen. Also, you more likely have to decide, well, if I use my closer now in today's extra inning games, I know for sure I'm not going to be able to use them the next day. And if so, if you do use your closer in that game, how many pitches are you going to allow him to throw? That's also a decision they have to make. I like the rule too because for if you're the visiting team, you have more pressure than the home team. If you're the visiting team, you know for sure that you need to score a minimum of 2 runs at best if you want a chance to win.
And that's
Because
really hard
the
to do. Yeah.
the home team is going to know when they come up to bat how many runs they're going to have to score. It's either going to be between 0 and 1 most likely. There's a very good chance you either have to score no runs or just 1 run or 2 runs to win the game. It depends if the away team was able to get that runner, that ghost runner, home and score. If they're able to get the runner home, then you know, okay, I need 2 runs to win this game, or I just need 1 run because they never got the guy over and they got out of the inning. So it's interesting. Like I said, there's more pressure for the away team than the home team. But I like it. Also, I like it because it just paces the game. The game is a lot quicker. It's it's a long time to be at the game. You're a fan. You know, a lot of these games are at nighttime, so most fans got go to work the next day. You know, so it's like, well, this game is running till 11, 12 o'clock at night. You know, I gotta go home eventually. You know, because I gotta be at work the next day, whatever the case may be. And
Yeah. Yeah.
also for the players, it's important because the longer that those players are out there, you're just opening a chance of one of those players getting hurt, and you don't want one of your key players to get hurt. So you have to be really strategic as a manager with who you're going to throw out there, and also if you're the manager for the team that's at bat, you got to be more strategic. Who are you going to send up to? One, who are you going to use to be your ghost runner? Like you were saying earlier, you want to get the fastest guy on your team, and on second base to start off. Also, you want to figure out who can I use on the bench to pinch hit for me, because there might be a chance where you go into extra innings and those three batters that are going to come up in the extra innings are not going to be your star players. It could be your five, six, seven, eight guys, and they might not be your superstars. You know what I mean? A lot of teams they like to put their top tier players in the
One
one
through
through four
four. Yeah,
of the lineup. You know, so it's really a chess game, like you said. So
it
it's
is. It
interesting.
is.
I love it. It's been working great. I went to the other day. I was at an extra innings game here in Atlanta versus Miami and the Braves. And in the top of the 10th, the Miami Marlins have bases loaded, no outs, and by Cook, the Braves got out of it and they did not score a run. The Marlins were not able to score. So then what happened is the Braves came up to bat in the bottom of the 10th. Since Ronald Acuna was the last out in the bottom of the ninth, he was the ghost runner. And
Perfect situation.
Michael Harris was their first hitter to come up in the bottom of the 10th. Guess what happened? He blew a nice shot to the outfield, fell between the two guys, and the game was over and they won.
And
Now, if
even
Miami had scored, that game, as a fan, I was like, oh, this is disastrous because there's bases loaded. There's a good chance they're going to score at least one run, even if on a double play they score a run. If they get a pop out, they score a run. Something's going to go wrong. It's just bound to happen. It's just a lot of pressure. Somehow they managed to pull out of it, and the game was over. And it just literally that bottom of the 10th inning probably was done in like 2 minutes, not even. So it's cool. I like the rule. I'm glad that they got rid of it in the postseason, which is nice
yeah, nobody
because
wants to see that in the postseason,
no,
and
nobody wants to
nobody
see
wants to
that.
see that. Everybody wants to, they want these guys to fight it out and figure it out. But it makes it really hard on the bullpen as well. Think about it. Nobody wants an inherited run on second with no outs because the chances are that this guy's gonna score. There's so many ways to move a guy over from second. You can lay down a beautiful bunt, a nice hit pop fly that's nice and deep where the guy can move over and tag up. A ground ball can move the guy over. There's so many different ways that you can play this game. And that's what makes it interesting because you don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, I remember talking to you while you were at that game, and I told you Acuna's on second. There's no way in hell that these guys are gonna lose. And for a pitcher to get out of that situation in the first place, hats off to you. It's really hard to pull off. So it's a different way of thinking. It's a different way of looking at the game. And you're in the stands and you're like, wow, what's next? And you start to manage the game. And that's what makes it interesting as well, because you don't know what this manager's thinking. The opposing team doesn't know what the manager's thinking, but you're trying to figure it out, and it makes it exciting. It's like going to a really good movie and not knowing what the last 10 minutes are going to be like. This is interesting. It makes it super interesting. And it's going to keep the fans in the stands. It's not a playoff game. If I pay $500-$600 for a postseason game, I don't want to see that rule be implemented. I want to see these guys fight it out. But for a regular season game, it's fun. It's fun. It keeps the game exciting. Because everybody's all right. 9 innings, I'm good. I'm ready to go home. I have to be at work tomorrow, like you said. But in a situation like this, it keeps you in the stands. It keeps you there because you want to see what the outcome is going to be. And it's going to be fairly quick. I know you have the stats for how long the game has gone prior to the Ghost Runner. And you also have the stats for how long a game has gone with the Ghost Runner on second.
Yeah, so the longest game with the Ghost Runner was in August 25th of 2022. A game played between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Diego Padres. That game went 16 innings in about 5 hours and 50 minutes. And that's pretty impressive because you're saying to yourself, how did it take that long to score a run when you are gifted a run in each inning, extra inning game? So
with
that's pretty
no
impressive.
outs. Yeah,
With no outs, and you still couldn't score runs. So that's pretty impressive. You went 5 innings with the man on second. You could never, and no, neither team was able to get a runner across.
and that's
So that's
exciting.
impressive. Yeah, very
That's
exciting.
still exciting. That's exciting because
Definitely.
you know that the bullpen is there. That's a really good bullpen on both sides. You know, I like it. I like it. It would have kept me in the stands for sure. I want to see this unfold. It's
No, definitely. And the longest game prior to the Ghost Runner rule that went was on without the Ghost Runner was on May 1st, 1920, between the Brooklyn Robins, also known as the Brooklyn Dodgers, and they were playing the Boston Braves. And that game went 26 innings, but the game ended in a tie because back in the 20s, the fields didn't have lights. They basically played until it got dark and the game ended in a
that's
tie.
that's
Imagine being
crazy.
around that time and seeing that game. That's a long day at the field. I probably would have left after like maybe the 15th inning, maybe. I don't know if I would have stayed that long. That's literally, you're playing 2.5 games in one day. That's exactly what it is. You know what I
That's a
mean?
lot of wear and tear on everybody,
Oh, for
not only the
sure.
pitching staff, but the players themselves. And who knows what you know number in the series that was. First game, horrible. Last game, all right, maybe a little different. How about off days in between? So this way your players can get their strength back and get a day to relax and get their strength back. It's crazy. It changes the game. It changes the dynamic of a series, and I like it. I like it. It's one of the rules that I really like. When they changed the National League rules, I didn't care for that so much, but I see why they did it. They did it. It makes the game more exciting. Now, it's a universal DH. I dig it. I'm starting to understand why the American League side had more exciting games because you have that ninth guy can hit the ball, but at the same time, I like the chess match when you had the pitcher batting ninth because it changes the game drastically. And it also gave the National League an advantage when they played interleague games. But I this rule I appreciate and I like, and the fact that they didn't implement it into the postseason is the perfect way to go about this new rule. Well, it's not new anymore. It's been around for 4 years, but I like it and I'm glad it's here to stay. The players like it, the guys in charge of the league like it, and nobody's complaining about it. Nobody's complaining about it. It protects pitchers' arms, you know, and it does a lot for the game.
No, it definitely does. And speaking on the topic of rules, one of the other rules they kind of recently implemented, I believe it was during the COVID years, was that now any relief pitcher that comes into a game, they have to pitch a minimum to at least 3 batters minimum. They have to pitch to 3 batters at minimum. So, for example, so if the next 3 batters, if the pitcher's a left-handed pitcher, and in the next 3 guys, one out of those 3 guys is a lefty and the other two are righties, that left-handed pitcher has to face those two right-handed batters. Where before you could say, "Up, I'm only bringing you in to
For that
face the
one
left-handed
lefty,
pitcher, the
yes.
hitter, and I'm gonna bring in my right-handed specialist to take out these righty guys." I like that rule. I'm glad they got rid of it because every time you bring a new pitcher, it takes 5 to 10 minutes because they got to get warmed up, and it's just a whole circus. It takes forever. It just drags the game.
Yeah,
And
it
that's also
helps.
puts pressure on that pitcher. And like you said, for the manager, he's holding his breath. And well, I hope this guy can handle it. Even if
Yeah,
his numbers are not that great against right-handed batters, hey, he's gonna have to be lights out today. So it's
that's
another
right.
cool, interesting rule. I'm
It
glad they
is.
stuck with the implementing the rules of the man on second. I know you're not a fan of it initially.
But I'm,
You
I'm
like,
starting to get used to it, and it does
yeah, it
make the
takes
game
a while,
exciting.
you know.
Takes a while. Takes a while because I'm old school. I grew up on a game where the bunt was being used a lot more frequently. You had these lefty specialists coming in. There was no pitch clock, and the game was really different. The shifting was allowed. You know,
Oh, I
I,
hated the shift. Oh,
no, I love the shift. It made the batter have to, they have to figure it out. They have to figure it out. There's no reason why you're getting paid so much money and you can't
pull the pull
you
the
can't
ball.
you can't pull the ball exactly. It takes me back to the days of Tony Gwynn, who was like probably the best contact hitter ever in baseball, in my opinion. He could locate the ball and say, "I see the gap, and that's where I want to put it." All right, so that means you have to, figure out your timing. You know, so if you want to pull to the right and you're a righty, you have to stay back a little. And if you want to pull to the left, you have to swing a lot faster and you have to, you know, figure it out. But these players now, all they want to do is hit the ball hard and hope that it lands where they need it to land. It wasn't like that back in the day. Players were a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? Talented. That's the word I'm looking for. It wasn't just about hitting the ball hard and cracking the bat. It was about I see that gap and I want to put that ball right where nobody is, But it's not like that anymore. It's not like that anymore. It's different. The game was a lot more strategic back then, and you appreciated the different types of players and that were out there. Now it's all about let me hit it hard and hope for the best. That's what I'm seeing in the game now. It's a little different. And everybody's trying to go for the homer. There's a couple of guys out there that still do it. I'm a Met fan. I'm not saying this just because, but McNeil is a true contact hitter. He takes his time and he looks and he sees where the gap is, and that's where he wants to put the ball. And I appreciate a play like that because you're being strategic. The game of baseball reminds me of chess, but now in this age, the game has changed so much that it's missing that element. But this rule here, with the ghost runner, it brings back the element of chess for the manager, for the team, for everyone. And it's exciting for the fans. So I appreciate it because of that. It took me a while to get used to it because it's almost like cheating in my eyes. It's like, oh, you got a free, body on second now with no outs. Like, it's pretty easy to make it happen. Especially imagine if we had Tony Gwynn coming up to bat, right? With a man on second with no outs. It's a guaranteed game over. Because he's gonna put it exactly where he needs to get that man across. You know, it's a different game. It's a different game. I'm trying to adjust. You know, I'm trying to enjoy the game and remember that the game has to evolve. Everything evolves. We as people evolve. The game has to evolve. Everything around us. If you think about it, you weren't the same person 10 years ago that you are today. And we learn from our mistakes and we try to make everything better as we go along. And this is what baseball is trying to do. Are they gonna make mistakes? Of course, no doubt about it. Are people going to frown on a lot of the new rules? Of course. The older generations are going to always frown on the new rules because they're stubborn and they remember the game being completely different from what it is today. But some of the things that they're implementing into the league are working. And I just have to adjust and remember that. You want to speed up the process, you want to speed up the game, the pitch clock and all these other rules that are changing the game dramatically. they're for the good of the game. You have to always remember that the reasons why things are changing is because they want to better the game.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. How can you make the game interesting? How can you keep your fans engaged? And also, how can you kind of speed it up a little bit? The joke used to be like, "Hey, if you want to talk about work and have a good meeting, go to a ball game. You can get more done at a ball game than you can sitting in an office." Because the joke is, it's like basically saying because it's such long, slow game that in between innings, you can have a full conversation about work and not miss a beat in the game. But now you can't do that. Now you got to pay attention. I remember last year I went to a game. I was like, oh, I got there a little late. I got there at 7:30. They were already in the third inning. I was like, yikes. And that's
Exactly.
part of me forgetting, whoops, I should have got here on time. But
Yeah, you feel like you're
it's,
missing out, right? You feel like you're
yeah, it
missing
missed
out.
out a lot. 3 innings is a lot. I was like,
That's a
man,
lot. That's a lot.
like,
That's a third of a game.
yeah, it's crazy. Speaking of rules, there's an interesting rule that you brought up my attention to. It's about how the league is tweaking a new rule that allows position players to take the mound when their team is leading or trailing by six. Would you like to expand on that more, Pablo?
Yeah, of course. This rule I like. The reason why I like it is because if your team is down by a million runs, there's no need to go to the bullpen for that. You guys lost already. Is it um defeat in a sense? It is, right? But let's happen to say, like I was saying earlier, you know what? I've seen teams come back from 8 runs in the eighth and ninth inning and overcome the deficit. For example, the other day, I don't know if you remember this or you even, tuned in for this because it was a late game. It was San Diego versus Colorado. I'm looking at the game and I'm like, wow, San Diego. I think they were winning 4-1 at one point, and then all of a sudden, Colorado comes back. They were playing in Colorado, and that's a big handicap for a lot of opposing teams going into Colorado because of the altitudes and how the ball plays out when you hit it. But these guys were able to come back, right? Tie the game. And then the next couple of innings, San Diego goes up another four. So it's like 8-4, right? And I'm like, this game is over. And Colorado comes back and they were able to score like 6 runs and win the game, I think like 10-9, So in this case, you have to be up by what, 6 runs, right? To be able to implement a position player
Hmm.
into the game. But they're saying that leading teams have to be up by 10 or more runs in the ninth inning to let a position player come in, right? So you don't deplete your bullpen, right? But I like it. And if you're down by 8 or more runs, the position players are able to come in and pitch at any time. So it's like a weird, situation, but I like it. I like it because you don't deplete your bullpen. It's almost like claiming defeat and saying, "All right, this game is over. There's no way we can win this game." So you throw a position player in. We saw it the other day when the Atlanta Braves played the Mets as well. They threw in Luis Guillorme out of all people, an ex-Met who played
Former
his
Met.
exactly. He played his whole career, first year with Atlanta, and they threw him in there. And of course, the Mets capitalized on that. Who wouldn't? A position player, he's gonna throw the
Yeah.
ball over the plate. He's gonna get rocked, but you're pretty much claiming defeat. So it's weird. It's weird. It's weird, but I understand why they do it. Like I said, game one of a series, you don't want to deplete your bullpen. You throw in your position player if you're down by so many runs, and you're pretty much claiming defeat. If I'm a manager, I would never use that rule. It's optional. I would never use that rule because I'm never gonna count my team out. I've seen teams come back from more than that, and like I said, every single game counts.
Well, in the postseason, you'll never see a situation where in the postseason the manager will be like, all right, let me just throw in a random guy. They're not gonna put their superstar to pitch. They're gonna put like the backup catcher to throw the pitch. But at the same time, you don't want to just completely do that also because every game counts in the postseason. You don't want to just give one game away and completely take away your momentum. So the less likelihood of them using a position player in the postseason to do that is very less likely. Where in
Yeah,
a
that's
regular season it is because you don't care. You got 180 games to go, so it doesn't
but you
matter.
no, but you should care. You should care because, like I said, every game counts. So leading teams up by more than 10 in the ninth inning can bring a position player in, and teams that are down by more than 8 or more runs can bring a position player in. That's the rule. So if I'm managing a ball club, you're never gonna hear me say, "Hey, Lasha, I know you play second, but guess what? You're the pitcher tonight for the rest of this, and I know it's not gonna look good, and you're not gonna have a good time up there. But guess what? You're getting paid to do it, so go up there and have fun with it." No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I refuse to. You never know what can happen, especially when if you can come back and you have the right people, because I know what happens. Players are like, well, this game is over. There's always tomorrow. No, fight, get it done. That's just how I feel. So that one rule, I don't appreciate, but it's okay. It's okay. I understand why it's there. I understand why it's there. But if I'm a manager, I'm never gonna claim defeat. Never. I've seen it. I've seen it happen multiple times. I've seen the Mets come back from a 8-run deficit and take it. Those are exciting games as well. Well, for the three fans left in the stadium, but that's not the point. That's not the point. How many times have you gone to sleep and said, you know what? I don't think we have it tonight. And you wake up the next morning and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe what just happened. They won, and then you run for those highlights. You're trying to find those highlights because you can't believe what you're reading. You read it in the paper, and now you're fishing for highlights. And you're like, damn, I fell asleep on that one. Mm-mm, not me. Not me. I mean, listen, I'm a diehard fan, and when my team is down 5 runs, I don't want to see that game. I shut it off. I shut it off. I shut it off. It depends. If I'm watching the game with my old man, I always tell him, hold on, don't worry about it. We're gonna come back from this. Even if we don't, I'll make him believe that we can. It's baseball. You never know what's gonna happen. But we're coming to the end of the show now, and this is a special edition episode, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any comments or questions, you can always get to us by sending us an email at strikeoutbros@gmail. And we're going to catch you on the next one. Tomorrow is the end of the series for Baltimore and the Mets. And we're going to have an episode ready for you guys. And we're going to be talking about the player of the week, the pitcher of the week, and all the exciting things that are happening out there during this week of baseball. Hope you enjoyed it and have a good night.
Take care, man.
Take care.